Hello and welcome to the Daily Royal. My name is Shelby and I have been a royal watcher for the past 10 years. In this podcast, I talk about the daily events of 7 of the European monarchies. So I talk about Belgium, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Sweden. I upload Monday through Friday with occasional bonus episodes here and there. Today we are talking about all of the events from Wednesday, June 16th of 2021. And it felt like a really quiet day. And I'm not sure if that's because most of my day-to-day royal watching is done on Twitter. And it just wasn't very active on Twitter from the royal families who are on Twitter. They would post once or twice and that was fine. There were still plenty of things happening throughout the day. It just felt like a slower day, which is fine. I mean, yesterday was really, really busy. The weekend was insanely busy. And now we're gearing up for another big couple of days in terms of Euro Cup and just some other stuff that's going on. So I'm just it's just kind of a week of busy, slow, busy, slow, busy, slow. And I'll take that. And it's not like today was slow. It really wasn't. It was just, the events weren't there isn't a lot to talk about from them, if that makes sense. There's not, international visits. I mean, kind of, with South Korea and Spain, but not really with the events from today. There's not much to talk about. I mean, we'll make it work, but it was just we already talked about Ascot, so we'll talk about it again today, but that's all that was going on. So just there's not a ton of additional information kind of day, is what I mean when I'm yeah, it's kind of slow. There's just not a lot happening. So anyway, we are going to start with the British royal family because there was nothing going on in Belgium today. King Philippe will be in Denmark tomorrow for the Belgian-Denmark match. Very excited for that. And so that's what's going on tomorrow in Belgium, but again, nothing today. So let's go ahead and talk about the British royal family. In the UK, there was one thing kind of on the public agenda, and so today the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall again were at the Royal Ascot races, so this was day 2. It is still rumored that Queen Elizabeth may make an appearance by the end of the week, tomorrow or Friday. We'll see. I'm not going to hold my breath for that. I'm not going to anticipate it too much. I would be thrilled, but we'll see. And then there is kind of this sideline thing of the Duchess of Cambridge is making a pretty big announcement of an initiative that she is starting similar to William's Earthshot. So we'll see what that becomes. I'm anticipating that to maybe be tomorrow. It said later this week when the announcement was made, so my hope is that it'll be announced on Thursday, so I can talk about it, but we'll see. So anyway, that was kind of the public thing. Again, it was Ascot day 2, and the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall handed out the trophy for the Prince of Wales Stake, which is one of the races that takes place. Okay, so now we are going to check the court circular here to see what is going on there. Maybe. There it is. Okay, so, it's Wednesday. Boris Johnson had an audience with the Queen via telephone this evening. And then the Duke of Cambridge, president of the Football Association, so this is Kensington, this morning held a meeting with the CEO and the partner for equality, diversity, and inclusion of the Football Association, which is this thing that is going on. I remember early in May, the Kensington Palace, like, social media took a break for a weekend, like, went silent on social media, and I wasn't sure what it was in reference to, but it turned out to be a thing against racism in the football community. And so this is just like an ongoing thing that is happening, that William has decided to take upon to himself, and like be really active in these discussions about how to be anti-racist in the football community. So that is, I'm assuming, what that's about, but it doesn't say that that's what it's about. It's just an assumption. So anyway, that is what is going on there. Again, no mention of Ascot in the court circular, which is pretty normal. Really the only person whose court circular entries will reflect going to Ascot is Queen Elizabeth's. So everyone else, it's more of a private event. So that is what was going on in the UK. And so now we are going to jump to the Danish royal family. In Denmark today, there was one event, and so today Crown Princess Mary opened what I believe is the first newly constructed, so there have been centers like this before, but never a completely new build, but it is a newly constructed hospice center for children and young people who, of course, suffer with life-threatening and life-limiting illnesses. And so this center has been built to provide ways for children and young people to experience day-to-day activities, quote-unquote normal activities, easily, and in ways that will work for them. So during Mary's official tour, she saw what I believe was like a library, a couple of different areas that will promote traditional things, traditional enjoyable things, again, in a way that is safe. So there was an opening ceremony. Mary cut the ribbon to officially mark it as open, and yeah, so that was the event. I have not found any video or anything yet. I haven't searched super hard, but like my known sources don't have anything, so I'm not sure if there was a video pool available, allowed or not. I'm just not sure, but I will continue my search, and we'll see what that brings. So anyway, that is what was going on in Denmark. Again, really not a lot to talk about here, especially as we are living in anticipation of the football game tomorrow, match, whatever it is to be called, where like basically every single person in Denmark is going, every single royal in Denmark for the most part is going to this game, which I think is great. I'm so excited, but it's just going to be kind of a weird, I would say, depending on how involved all the royals get in that have host stadiums, it'll be an interesting combination of things, because if there are host stadiums in your country, are you going to the games? What's happening? so far it really just seems to be Frederick is scheduled for everything. But like Spain is hosting, the Netherlands are hosting, so like we'll see. And then in England, Wembley is hosting as well. So we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, that is what was going on in Denmark. And so now we are going to go ahead and move on to the Dutch royal family. In the Netherlands today, again, we just had one event, and so this is one of the events that is marking Queen Maxima's kind of shift into a real discussion on mental health. So today she visited an organization that won an Apple of Orange Award for 2020, which I'm thinking are the ones that were just presented, but she visited this organization. It was called Villa Penino? I think. Hold on, let me look here. It was definitely Villa something. Villa Penido, which is an organization that has a lot of different, like, psychological, sociological components to it, but the program she was focused on today is a program that offers, both online and in-person support to children and young people whose parents have gone through a divorce, and provides them with resources to go through that huge life-changing event, because even though it is something that happens to a lot of children, it is, I can only imagine, being older and going through that and having your family dynamic change. So my parents are divorced, and but it happened when I was a baby. So like my family dynamic has always been my family dynamic. It never changed on me. So I can only imagine, and of course like have lived through experiences of others that are going through this, like having that family home dynamic completely change, and if it's a split custody arrangement, you know, going from place to place and learning that way, and just having your entire life kind of change is really challenging. I mean, people have it with all kinds of things, but divorce is definitely a huge piece and a contributing factor to potential trauma. You know, and so having places to go for support if you're not finding the support you need from your family, especially if there's like a messier divorce, or like one parent doesn't know not to talk bad about the other. You know, like there are so many things that can go wrong, that like having good support and people and resources to turn to is so crucial. So I think that's a really awesome program. I'm thrilled that it won an award and is now getting some attention, because at the end of the day, like that's the whole modern point of royalty. It's not the medieval point, but it is the modern point, is to, one of the things is to bring attention to causes and organizations that can really benefit from news attention, and have that like earned media focus, where like the media is focusing on them because of something else that happened, but then people are learning more. So it's kind of like YouTuber influencer culture, but on a much more prestigious, less materialistic point. I'm specifically thinking of like a specific case where I was watching a YouTuber and she was eating chewy sweet tarts, like the stupidest thing, but like after that, I could not get them out of my head. So I went and got some, and they were delicious. But it was just like the most random thing I was influenced by. But like, that's the whole point, right? Is to like share your likes and dislikes with the world and use them, and people will support things like that. Now, it wasn't a brand deal or anything like that I found this on. It was just like, I want these chewy sweet tarts. And I'm like, hey, those look really good. And so that's what I was influenced by. Like, I will boast that I've never bought anything at the request or like influence of a social media person. Like, I'm proud of that. I don't buy merch or anything like that. But anyway, such a tangent that I just went on. But that's the whole point of royalty, is to share experiences in organizations like this, like an organization that can do so much for children who are seeing their parents go through a divorce. You know, it gets picked up in the news media, Twitter and everything, and then a parent can maybe see that, or a child themselves, and go, hey, my kid or I could benefit from that. And so they look it up and they use it, and that's the whole point. Or one of the points. There are several points to royalty, but like that's the one that I like the most. That's why I focus so much on like talking about the events, and trying to steer away from the drama and the outside noise so much, because that's not what's important. It's like, let me share this part, because that is important. It's important to talk about the events in their context and not focus on the bullshit around it. So anyway, that is my thoughts on it. So with that tangent that I just went on, we are going to go ahead now and move on to Norway. We are continuing with King Harald and Queen Sonja's trip around Western Norway. Today was day 2, and they visited I think it's a county, of Hilstad. So they took part in a few different events today in that area. First, they spoke with community officials, specifically focused on the shipbuilding industry, and the effects that the pandemic has had on the industry, but also just like innovations within the industry, kind of changing business models and things like that has been going on, to keep up with the times. And so what does that look like in the modern world? So that was a focus. And then they also visited a local park in the area that I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of. But it is an area that it's like an outdoor museum, and it has some of the largest quarry. That's not the way you say that word. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. That's one of the words. It's an English word, and it's a word I can't say. So I'm not even going to try, but I think it's like quarries. Anyway, it's like a place that holds stone. And so they have opened trails at this park before. Queen Sonja kind of had like a demonstration of different things that go on, like labor skills that are taught in the park. So that's really cool. And then they also had a sit-down conversation. I think it was in this woman's home. So it was a 23-year-old woman who returned back to her town after leaving and studying, which is a very rare thing to do in these smaller communities. So this is something that's like a global problem. Is if you live in a small town and there aren't a lot of opportunities for advancement in said small town, you will typically go get educated and then you never come back to live because there are no opportunities. And so this is like a growing problem, and it's leading to, I talk about this a lot when it's like Princess of Asturias award time, because they always give out an award for like the exemplary town in Asturias. And every year the populations of the town get smaller and smaller because there aren't opportunities in these very small pueblos. And so I talk about this economic event a lot there, but like I've also experienced it. I lived and worked in northern New Hampshire for a long time. And it was desolate there because the opportunities for good jobs were basically gone. And nothing was coming in. And so younger people who grew up there left and went wherever. A lot of them would relocate completely to other states. But they would seek opportunity and education elsewhere to better their lives, and then would never come back to the spot in New Hampshire I was in. Which I understand. And I know, like, I grew up in a small town and don't live there now because I sought better opportunities elsewhere. I live close to my hometown, but not in it. So that is something that goes on a lot, but this young woman did return, and so she talked about her experience in returning. Her partner was lucky enough to receive a job. They have a baby. So, like, they were able to make it work, but it's not easy by any stretch. So that was a really cool thing that they did as well. And also, I'm loving the tour in and of itself. Like, I think, again, it goes back to what I talked about yesterday, in that since I started this podcast, I have seen them do things outside of, like, their residence 3 times before yesterday. 3. There was a state visit to Jordan in early March of 2020, like right before the pandemic. And then, like, they ended up going into a quarantine when they returned because they had been out of the country. Like, it was that right up until the pandemic. And then both, like, May 17th Constitution Days. So I think it's partly that. It's also partly, like, King Harold seems to be health-wise doing okay. He does use 2, like, crutches, canes, assisted walking things, because he had that knee surgery fairly recently, so, like, I get that. But, like, overall, he seems to be doing well, so that is exciting. I did note that he did not go into, like, the foresty part of this park for the demonstration. That was solely Queen Sonia, but that's what it is, right? It's teamwork. So that, I just am loving this. We'll talk more. They have another one tomorrow, so we'll talk more about it tomorrow. But for now, we are going to move on to the Spanish royal family. There were 2 events in Spain today, and it is technically day 2 of the state visit from the Republic of Korea to Spain. So first, King Felipe today was in Barcelona for the dinner ahead of a, I believe it's Circle of Economy conference that is being held in Barcelona this year, focusing on the focus of this specific dinner is on pandemic economic recovery and such. So there are going to be lots of different meetings, but King Felipe was invited to give the address at the dinner ahead of time. And then joining him was the president of the Republic of Korea. So that is very cool. But I wanted to talk about, there wasn't like, they did that and then they held a bilateral and now the state visit is over, which is totally fine. The thing about incoming state visits is the heads of state only play like a very small role in welcoming. So like the visiting representatives are doing a lot more. So like the South Korean president has gone to a lot of things, but because King Felipe and Queen Letizia weren't involved, I didn't talk about them, but there were a lot of things going on. I think he received like the key to Madrid and whatnot. Like he did a lot of things, and then was in Barcelona today for this, which is a super important thing. But when a royal goes and does a state visit, like obviously I, on this podcast, am talking about everything they do because that's what I focus on. So just a little, like, it seems like it was hardly a state visit, which it was a really short one. But the Korean visitors did a lot of things. And so, like I said, they went to the dinner together. King Felipe and President Moon Jae-in also held a bilateral at the very end to mark the end of the state visit. But then that was it, right? And so that's okay. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit is I am unsure if I'm going to do this often. But as I've been kind of playing around with like podcast ideas, I want to not draw into the drama, but like the tangible things that are happening. So like, I don't want to ever pick sides on any particular thing, and not because I'm a journalist, I'm a regular person. But like, I want to always give context to things that are happening, or like when I say I freak out when King Felipe goes to Barcelona, like I am worried for his general well-being when he goes to Barcelona, it's because of this thing that I'm going to talk about. So, and I've said this, every time he goes, there are protests in the streets. When they went last summer, there was like a train that had to just stop on the tracks, and it was carrying, I think, journalists and press that were covering the event that King Felipe and Queen Letizia were doing. Like, it's horrible. And the Catalan people, Barcelona's in Catalonia, are protesting for a lot of reasons right now, and have been for years. So in 2017, they held an illegal referendum for independence. And look, it's hard to hold a legal referendum for independence. Like, you can't really do that. So I understand why they held an illegal referendum. But because participation was so low, it gave a lot of credence to not allowing Catalonia to become its own independent country. There is right now a lot of talk going on behind the scenes, but not really behind the scenes. Like, it's all very much front page news, about pardoning from the liberal government, federal government of Spain, pardoning I don't want to call them conspirators, but that's the word that is used. The minds behind holding the referendum were sentenced to jail time, like 9 to 15 years, for holding this illegal referendum. And somehow in the middle of this, like, King Felipe's name got used in terms of like being a co-conspirator in the liberal meaning to pardon these people, which like is not accurate. He has to sign pardons if they are presented to him. It's not really up to him in terms of his constitutional role. But people say the things they don't mean, and so anyway, it is now like, it is all messy because everyone's mad at the king. Usually it's just like one side of the world is mad at the king. But now everyone's mad. And it just, these people protest in the streets, they light pictures of him on fire, and it's frightening. Now, they do a really good job of keeping him away from it and keeping him safe, and like, props to everyone in charge of his security when he goes to Barcelona, because it freaks me out every time. Like, there is always a wall, basically, surrounding him. And not just a wall of people, but like armored vehicles when he gets out of the car in Barcelona. So it's just like this really intense thing, and I feel like Spain is the only country where this like openly just happens, because it's Spain. That's my reasoning. That's like the reason I'm going to give. But so that happened today, and like, I just have thoughts and feelings, and I want to share some, like, I wanted to share some of them, but not a ton of them, because I don't want this to be a political podcast, whether Spanish or American. It's turned into that before, and I didn't really like it, and you guys didn't like it. But I also, like, instead of just repeating things that you can just find online, like, I want to find something to talk about, but I'm not sure what that'll be. Like, I don't do fashion, that's not my thing, but like, I do the politics and I do the history, and I love that. So I don't know, every now and then we might just talk about some random like constitutional role stuff thrown in here and there, and clarify. So maybe tomorrow I'll have some clarifying pieces of like King Felipe's role with these pardons, or just like something along those lines. But anyway, that was a really long rant. And so that all happened today. And then also today, Queen Letizia hosted the First Lady of South Korea to a visit to the foundation for blind Spanish people. The Spanish acronym is ONCE, ONCE, so it's Fundación ONCE, and the organization focuses on making life and transitions into, like, making life as normal as possible for people who are blind. And they do a really great job. They have won, I think it was a Prince of Asturias Awards. I think it was in 2013 that they won the award. So it was still a Prince of Asturias Awards at that point, like, for their work, and it's really phenomenal work that they do. And so they visited a couple of different, like, areas of the foundation and the work that they do. And then at the end, they bought lottery tickets from an ONCE vendor. So, like, I don't know if ONCE has its own lottery or if they partake into, like, the big Spanish lottery, which I don't think is drawn very often. But there are these vendors, and so I don't know how it all works, but they each bought a ticket that had corresponding numbers to days, to the day that diplomatic relations began with the two countries, which is, I think, in 1953. And then they, like, because there were two tickets attached, they, like, each ripped off one and shared with the other. It was very cute. And so that marked the end of the state visit altogether. And it was wonderful. I'm still horribly sad that there were no tiaras, but anyway, I will survive. And so that is what was going on in Spain, plus a little extra, and we'll see what y'all think. And so with that, we are going to go ahead now and move on to the Swedish royal family. Finishing up with the Swedish royal family today, there were several different things that happened, and I can actually talk about almost all of them, which is amazing. So today, King Carl Gustaf took part in a meeting with the president of Lithuania, who was on an official visit to Sweden to mark 100 years of diplomatic relations between Sweden and Lithuania. Again, when I guess it would be after like the First World War. I don't know. I was thinking about the USSR, like the Soviet Union, but that's not right. That's 30 years. But okay, well, anyway, they have been celebrating 100 years of diplomatic relations and probably 30 years of renewed diplomatic relations after the Soviet Union broke down. And then also today, King Carl Gustaf and Crown Princess Victoria presided over a meeting of the Foreign Affairs Committee. So this is similar to like an information council or a state council, but it's focused only on foreign affairs that relate to Sweden's interests. So the Prime Minister is there, as well as the Foreign Minister and other ranking members of, I think it's the Riksdag in Sweden, I think, who are particularly invested in foreign relations, will sit down and present foreign relations things to King Carl Gustaf, and also, if she is there, Crown Princess Victoria. So this happens less regularly than a Council of State. This is the first one I have seen in the year and a half that I've been recording these. Of course, it could have happened via like digital means in the last year. I don't remember that, but like in person like this is definitely the first one. So that was really exciting for me, the foreign relations nerd. And so that was awesome. And then also today, Crown Princess Victoria took part in a digital meeting with representatives from the Church of Sweden, which takes part in an organization called ACT, or Action by Churches Together, which is a global community of faith-based initiatives to assist in the world and do charitable actions everywhere. So they were talking about different programs that the Church of Sweden is involved in. So that is what was going on there. There isn't like a whole lot to go in on detail extensively, but I'm just glad that it was more than me just reading off 3 things in it, and like that was it. Like that happened yesterday. It was like a couple of events and there were no details. Today, at least there were some details. So I appreciate the little bit of detail I was given. So anyway, that is what was going on in Sweden today. That brings us to the end of this episode. Please review the podcast wherever you're listening. Follow it on the website, thedailyroyal.com, Daily Royal on Instagram, and Daily Royal Podcast on YouTube. And with that, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a fantastic Thursday. Bye.